word voodoo comes from West Africa and Benin, formerly known as Dahomey, and it means a sacred dance to the spirit.
Peace, Black family. So this is part 2 of the 3-part series, The Attack on Haitian Voodoo. And in part 1, what I was doing is showing how this attack is taking place within Haiti, how you have white missionaries coming in using food, using folklore, using scare tactics to convince Haitians to leave the practice of voodoo alone. Okay, they're coming in with Western finances. They're building up these Roman Catholic schools. You know, they have the children going to these schools, and they're using propaganda amongst the Haitian people to make them fearful of their own African spirituality. And that's what I proved in part 1 of this 3-part series. Now, in this video, what we're going to talk about is the effects of what they've been doing. Because a lot of us don't know that once they attack the parents of people who practice voodoo, then the parents will then force their children into a life of Christianity. Check out this video of Haitian elders forcing these young African children to accept Christianity.
Au nom de Jésus, vous faites une bataille à Satan.
So why is this necessary? Why are Europeans putting in so much effort to force us out of our form of African spirituality? Because they know that we can tap into something unseen into the eye. When we realize the principles of voodoo, because voodoo is not just about ceremonies, voodoo is a way of life. Voodoo is about nature. Voodoo is about plants. Voodoo is about connecting with your ancestors. It's more deep than what most people believe. But since we have these Europeans who have been giving us this narrative, feeding us these ideas about, what voodoo is and scaring us, we don't know what voodoo is. But voodoo is actually a way of life. And they understand when we tap into those principles and we begin to live those principles, then we become uncontainable. The same way that Christianity is a way of life. Christianity has principles. Some of the principles are about forgiveness. There is no such thing as forgiveness in voodoo. And so Europeans understand that. Like I said in the previous video, they would make up these stories about 10-foot men and, zombies, and they just use all of those forms to scare us, right? But what's so interesting about this whole thing, this whole situation, is that everywhere you look now, you have pockets of white people practicing voodoo. And this is not just in the United States. This is in South America. This is in the UK. You have them practicing Haitian voodoo and Ifa and Santeria, which are all basically the same forms of religion or spirituality. They just have different components because Africans were shipped to different places and they picked up different ways to practice, but it's still the same thing. Santeria is Ifa, Ifa is voodoo, voodoo is candomblé in Brazil. It's all the same thing. But you see that now. You see white people practicing this. You see white people becoming mumbos, becoming high officials in this religion.
Hi, Bobo, everybody. This is Mambo Mary, making another video for you, coming to you live from just outside Boston, Massachusetts. I hope you all are having a blessed and prosperous new year, and happy Martin Luther King Day. I thought I wanted to today discuss whiteness and voodoo. I've had a couple comments here and there saying either on this channel or just out in cyberspace where it's really easy to be anonymous and say things to people that you wouldn't necessarily say to their face. That as a white person, I have no place in voodoo, that my priestesshood is not real, and that white people just don't have spirits, and that whenever a white person practices voodoo or even expresses an interest in voodoo, that it's cultural appropriation. I acknowledge the fact that I have no Haitian blood. I'm as white as a sheet of paper. My background is Irish and French and German and English. And I know for a fact that on my mother's side, which is heavily English, they came over to America in the 1630s. And I have records of an ancestor of mine coming to what is now Connecticut on a boat, and he had 3 slaves with him. So I know for a fact that my family owns slaves.
And the question I have to ask is, how can you honestly practice an African religion when your people enslaved African people, when your people are the primary reason on why we are scared to practice voodoo in the first place? How can you honestly? And this is why I see a lot of things taking place within some of these voodoo circles that allow white people to enter them. This is very, very hush-hush. But there's a lot of things that are taking place because it has become Christianized. It has truly become Christianized. It is now about the money. If you want a reading, if you want me to connect you to your ancestors, if you want me to do this, bring some money. It's disgusting. Now, not all people are doing that practice the spiritual system. Of course not. But there are a lot of people who are. But the question I'm asking, how can you practice an African religion when your people enslaved Africans? How is that even possible? How can you actually practice this religion when your people are going into Haiti and saying, oh, well, the earthquake from 2010 is because you guys practiced voodoo and that's just God taking vengeance back on you, as if America doesn't have natural disasters, as if a tornado just didn't touch down in the middle of Arkansas, as if Mississippi doesn't have hailstorms, but because we're so backwards, because we have been so brainwashed and so beaten, we automatically say, oh my gosh, the white man is right. It is because we practice voodoo, because it goes against what the Bible says. As if California doesn't have earthquakes, right? Like this is the type of mentality that we have been given. I'm talking about white Anglo-Saxon people are taking up voodoo like it is no tomorrow. No tomorrow. And they're using misguided Africans to initiate them. They're using fear-mongering. They're using all of these forms to remove us from our form of African spirituality. And it's done just to do that. Because once they remove us from who and what we are, remove our principles, they can make us into whatever they want us to be. And so it is up to us to get back to practicing our true and natural, naturistic form of spirituality, which is Ifa, which is voodoo, which is Santeria, which is Candomblé, whatever you want to call it, whatever makes you feel good. Whatever makes you feel good. But I know, as an African, I cannot be in a circle with someone's ancestors who enslaved my ancestors. If you are in a ceremony and you're supposed to be honoring your ancestors, how do you look over to the left and the person that the descendants of the people who enslaved your ancestors are chanting right along with you? That's foolery. That's tomfoolery. But we have to get back to who and what we are, because voodoo has a lot of principles that can govern us to where we need to be at. Look for part 3. Part 3 will be on the way. I will be making that very, very shortly. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Until next time, think black, stay black, love black, support black, and that's real African black power.